What's going on, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of Algebra 1 with Mr. K. Moore. I must say, before I get started on showing you guys how to do the next stuff for our week coming up, I have to say thank you so much for all your hard work and determination in getting some of this stuff done amidst all the other classes that you have. That is really, really, really something to brag about, especially how well you guys did this week, and of course, you're learning math online. So that alone is a challenge. But I appreciate both you students, you wonderful mathematicians, and of course your parents and whoever's helping you out at home. If you do need help, thank you for reaching out to me on Remind app. Thank you for being so patient as to submitting your assignments, and more importantly, to make sure you're learning the best you can. Today, we're going to talk about distributive property. Distributive property is easy, but you do need to remember a couple key rules, and I'm about to show you that here. Here today, I have my distributive property practice 1 worksheet. If my camera wants to focus today, I could show you that. Here we are. So, distributive property is basically just multiplication. You're distributing across whatever's inside of the parentheses. So if you look over at number 1 here, and you notice this 5 here on the end, right next to that little parentheses, your left bracket of the parentheses. That is the number that we are going to be multiplying today. And that will be the case always. It's always going to be starting from this number on the left bracket and then distributing across. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And of course, I've given you guys the answer sheet on your worksheets that I've uploaded so that you can check your work as well as you go along. I'm going to show you how to do these now. Let's see if it works. I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you. All right. Number 1 is 5 distributed 1 minus 6m. Oh, and it works. So wait a minute. Beep. Come on now. Oh, maybe? No, because it's really blurry. I'm doing my best to work here. So, all right. This number 5 that's always close to my left bracket is the one we're distributing. Now, the number 1 rule that I'd like for you guys to practice when you do distribute, always draw your arrows. What does that mean? I'm going to draw an arrow from the 5 over to 1, and then a 5 over to the negative 6, like this. Just like that. This makes your brain think, hey, I need to give this number somehow to these other 2 numbers. It keeps you focused, and more importantly, when you start to get into bigger problems and working through different numbers, these arrows will be very important for you guys. So, with these arrows, it means you need to multiply. Which one am I multiplying? I'm always multiplying from left to right. So, let's get started. 5 times, following your arrows, 1 will always be 5. Make sure you write it right below it. Don't just merge them into the cube here. Like, make sure you space your problem out because it'll be a lot easier for you to follow along once you start working through those bigger problems. Last year, I don't know why, but a lot of kiddos liked to write their answers like in here, and it was just really sloppy, and they got a little bit messed up on that, and it did cost them a little bit of points, but that's why we're here. Now, we have another arrow, don't we? So we already did our first arrow. We still need to multiply 5 times a negative 6m. And yes, this sign belongs, if it's next to this number, it belongs to it. So this would be a negative 6. And then, of course, with the m that's attached to this number, these 2 things belong to 6. So we're going to make sure we keep it when we do our multiplication. So 5 times negative 6m would be a negative, right? Negative 30m. Let's focus in on that, please. I apologize again. I'm working on these little tiny dot cams. Perfect. So that would be our answer. That's all you have to do. And it's not so difficult until you get to some of these ones. For example, let me show you number 5. Number 5 on our first worksheet doesn't really have a number. It's just a negative sign. 5 plus 5r. Okay? So again, on distributive property practice 1, I'm on number 5, and I'm looking at this problem as an example. Here we see a negative sign that's on our left. So how can we distribute that? Well, rule number 2 for distributive property is if you see a negative sign alone, always add a 1. There will always be an invisible 1 there. If you want to write a 1 right in the middle there, you can do so. I encourage you to write a 1 here, so please do it. Let's distribute. First, draw your arrows. Once you draw your arrows to each number, then you could start to multiply. Negative 1 times 5 is a negative 5. Okay? The next number, which is negative 1, times a positive 5r. Oh, there goes the camera again. Sorry about that, peeps. Negative 1 times a positive, again, this sign stays with it, 5r, and the letter stays with it as well. Negative 1 times a positive 5 will be a negative 5r. And remember, I kept this letter in my answer with the number that it corresponds to. Okay? That's all you have to do for those ones. I really wish that this thing would work. I do apologize. Now, I do want to show you a little bit of a bigger problem. For example, I'm still on distributive property practice 1. I'm going to look at problem number 21. I'm going to write it right here. 21, our equation is this. Minus 8 is 2 plus 10k close plus 8k. Yes. Take a breath and have a look at this once my camera decides to work. Okay, so we do know what we have to do here. First thing that we need to do is draw our arrows. Now, I won't draw an arrow to this guy because he's not in parentheses. So I'm going to leave him alone for now, but I'm going to bother these guys. Drawing an arrow from negative 8 to 2 and negative 8 to a positive 10k. Okay, so my arrows are telling me to multiply those numbers. So I'm going to do so. Negative 8 times 2 is a negative 16. Okay, notice how I'm writing them right underneath where I did that problem, and more importantly, keeping it nice and neat. My next arrow, because I already did this one, I follow it all the way over from negative 8 times 10k. That would be minus 80k. Now, I'm still left with a plus 8k over here. Bring it down to your equation below and make sure that you keep that sign, that plus 8k, down below. Now, if you have a look, we have a whole nother equation to work through. This would be called a two-step equation, and we are going to get to those later in the year. If you have a look, okay, 16, I cannot combine with these two, and that is my third rule. You cannot combine 16 and then a negative 80k, okay, because negative 16 doesn't have a variable. Our variable is also known as our letter, okay? These are variables. And it just so happens that I can combine these two numbers because they have the same letter. Otherwise, you would just leave it alone as negative 16 minus 80k if this number didn't exist. But let's make it simple and easy. I know that I can't combine this number because I don't have a letter, so let's just bring it right down. Okay? Now, I'll even cross that out just to give myself some room to breathe. Now I have a negative 80k plus 8. If it's a negative 80k, I'm still going down the whatchamacallit, down the number line. It's been a while, guys. So if I'm way down the number line and I'm adding 8 to it, my math would be negative 72k. Right. So if you look at our last number, again, I combined negative 80 plus 8, okay? And you keep the k's with them. That got me to negative 72k because I added 8 to how far I was down at 80. In conclusion, negative 16 minus 72k is my final answer. Why? Because 16 doesn't have a k. Therefore, I can't combine it, and your final answer remains just like this. That is distributive property in a nutshell. I'll do one more for you just to show you the different formats. For example, number 25. Negative 2 minus 4 minus n plus 5. And again, I'm still working on distributive property practice 1 worksheet, okay? But I'm here showing you guys the different formats that you will see. So our first thing that we're going to do, draw our arrows. Boom and boom. Now, I have a negative n. Remember what I said to this one over here for number 5? If it's just a negative sign and then an n, we're going to pretend that there is a 1 there. Whenever you see a blank spot like that, always assume it's 1. Now we have an equation. So negative 2 times negative 4, following my distribution arrows, is a positive 8. Next arrow, negative 2 times negative 1n would be positive 2n. Okay? And then we have a plus 5 here. All I did was bring this down, distributed these to get these two numbers. And then here's our next equation. Now, what two numbers are alike? Do any of these numbers have an n after them? I really hope you say no, because they don't, okay? So that means we could combine these two numbers and we can get our final answer, okay? So that means 8 plus 5, you keep the sign, and I like to write it like this. The two numbers that I could combine, I circle them because I know I could combine them, and I keep the sign with it. So 8 plus 5 equals 13 plus 2n. Your final answer is 13 plus 2n. I really hope that this tutorial will help you guys out, clarify a lot of questions, and probably give you some kind of ease of stress. I know how hard this stuff might be, and I appreciate you sitting here watching 14 minutes of me talking about math. But that's what we got to do, and we've certainly learned that this year, is we just got to do what we got to do, because it do be like that. Either way, please reach out for any questions. Best of luck on the second week, and if you have any comments or concerns, find me on the Remind app. Kmore out.